Earth's first interstellar conference was supposed to be a moment of dignity. Instead, it became known as the day humanity's pride took a direct hit, though not in the way anyone expected. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Confederation Space Station, Unity, lived up to its name. Crystalline structures stretched toward a transparent dome that revealed the stunning view of 3 different nebulae. Representatives from over 200 species filled the tiered seating, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic civilization. The human delegation, dressed in their finest diplomatic attire, stood out primarily for how plain they appeared in comparison. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood at perfect attention behind Ambassador Gregory Walsh, trying not to fidget with her dress uniform's collar. The small contingent of human military advisors had been included mainly as a formality. Nobody expected detailed military discussions during first contact proceedings. High Commander Zextal dominated the room, his iridescent scales shifting colors with each gesture of his 4-armed presentation. The holographic display behind him showcased the Confederation's military might. Ships that seemed to bend space itself, weapons that could reshape planets, and defensive systems that appeared to defy physics. And now, Zextal's translator rendered his complex harmonics into Earth Standard English. We would be most interested in learning about humanity's defensive capabilities. We understand you've achieved limited spaceflight and have some defensive measures. Ambassador Walsh nodded graciously and began the carefully prepared presentation. The holographic display shifted to show Earth's most advanced military vessels, their ceramic composite armor gleaming dully compared to the energy shields of Confederation ships. The first chuckle came from somewhere in the middle rows, then another and another. By the time Walsh reached the detailed specifications of the armor's heat dissipation capabilities, actual laughter echoed through the chamber. Even Zextal, who had maintained diplomatic composure until then, let out a sound that his translator couldn't quite process. The High Commander actually dropped his diplomatic tablet in his amusement. Forgive us, he managed through what seemed to be the alien equivalent of suppressed giggles. But surely this is some form of historical presentation. These designs, they're reminiscent of our space program from thousands of cycles ago. Chen's attention snapped to the dropped tablet as it clattered near her feet. In the brief moment before Zextal's aide retrieved it, she caught a glimpse of what appeared to be casualty figures. The numbers made no sense, not if the Confederation's technology was as superior as they claimed. Walsh maintained his diplomatic smile, though Chen could see the tightness around his eyes. I assure you, High Commander, these are our current active duty vessels. The ceramic composite armor has proven highly effective in our tests against various forms of energy weapons. This only prompted more laughter. A delegate from what appeared to be a gaseous species actually condensed slightly in their containment suit from mirth. Energy weapons? Zextal's scales shifted to a pattern that his aide quickly whispered was associated with patronizing amusement. My dear Ambassador, modern plasma weapons would vaporize such primitive protection instantly. Surely you don't mean to venture into deep space with such quaint defenses. Chen watched Walsh's hands clasped behind his back. A tell she'd learned meant he was restraining himself from saying something undiplomatic. She understood the feeling. The laughter was getting under everyone's skin. But those casualty numbers she'd glimpsed, they didn't match Zextal's confidence. Something wasn't adding up. The rest of the presentation devolved into barely concealed mockery. By the end, humanity's defensive capabilities had become something of a running joke in the chamber. Several delegates were already sharing edited footage of the presentation with amusing overlays and commentary. As they filed out of the chamber, Chen heard snippets of conversations being caught by her translator. Did you see their point defense systems? Might as well be throwing rocks. I haven't seen ceramic armor since my civilization's first space age. Perhaps we should gift them some proper shields before they get themselves killed. But Chen's mind was working overtime. She'd seen something in those casualty reports, something that suggested the Confederation's supposedly impenetrable energy shields weren't living up to their reputation. She needed to get her hands on more data. Lieutenant, Walsh's voice broke through her thoughts. "You seem preoccupied." Chen straightened. "Sir, request permission to conduct a detailed analysis of Confederation military capabilities." Something about their presentation felt off. Walsh raised an eyebrow. "Off how?" "I'm not sure yet, sir, but I think they might be laughing a little too hard at our primitive technology." Walsh studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Approved. But keep it quiet. We don't need to give them more reason to mock us." As they headed back to their quarters, Chen could still hear echoes of laughter in the corridors. She had a feeling that laugh might come back to haunt the Confederation someday. After all, history had a way of vindicating the underestimated. What she didn't know then was just how soon that vindication would come. Lieutenant Sarah, Chen's office aboard the Earth Embassy station, had become a nest of holographic displays and data streams. 3 weeks had passed since the embarrassing first contact conference, and she'd spent every off-duty moment pursuing her hunch about the Confederation's military capabilities. "You're going to want to see this, Dr. Wong," she said, manipulating a holographic readout with practiced gestures. Dr. Marcus Wong, Earth's leading materials scientist, leaned forward in his chair, his weathered face illuminated by the cyan glow of the display. "Another casualty report?" he asked, adjusting his old-fashioned glasses. "Better. Combat footage." Chen pulled up a grainy recording. This was leaked on some frontier trading network. Watch the Confederation cruiser's shields when the raiders hit it with plasma weapons. The footage showed a sleek Confederation vessel under attack. Its elegant energy shields flickered brilliantly against the first few hits, but then something unexpected happened. The shields began to deteriorate rapidly, their coherence failing under sustained plasma fire. "Pause it there," Wong said, pointing to a particular frame. "See that energy discharge pattern? Their shields are bleeding heat into space, but they're not dispersing it fast enough. The plasma weapons are overwhelming their heat management systems." Chen nodded eagerly. "Exactly. And look at this." She pulled up another display, showing technical specifications of Earth's ceramic composite armor. "Our armor was designed to handle the extreme heat of atmospheric re-entry. The ablative layers literally expect to burn away, carrying heat with them while protecting what's underneath. A fundamentally different approach to the problem," Wong mused, his eyes lighting up with scientific interest. "Their shields try to deflect and contain energy. Our armor embraces its own destruction as part of its protection mechanism." Their discussion was interrupted by a news broadcast penetrating the room's ambient feed. A popular Confederation entertainment channel was running yet another segment mocking Earth's military technology. The host, a floating crystalline being, was getting considerable laughs from the audience by comparing human armor to primitive animal shells. Wong snorted. "They'd really love making fun of us, don't they?" "It's the perfect cover," Chen replied, shutting off the broadcast with a sharp gesture. "Nobody looks too closely at something they're busy laughing at. But look at these numbers." She pulled up a series of graphs. "I've been tracking their fleet movements and battle reports. The Confederation is losing ships at an alarming rate in frontier skirmishes, especially against enemies using modern plasma weapons. And they're covering it up." "Not exactly. They're just not advertising it. Their propaganda focuses entirely on victories against kinetic weapon users, but against plasma weapons." She let the data speak for itself. Wong studied the numbers carefully. "Have you tried bringing this to anyone's attention?" Chen's expression soured. 3 times, but between Confederation political pressure and our own bureaucrats not wanting to rock the boat during first contact procedures, nobody wants to hear it. They're all too worried about appearing primitive in front of our new alien friends. "So what's our next move?" Before Chen could answer, her computer chimed with an urgent alert. A new combat report had just been leaked. A Confederation patrol had encountered something nasty in the outer territories. The casualty numbers were worse than anything they'd seen yet. "Keep analyzing that combat footage," Chen said, already reaching for her uniform jacket. "I need to call in some favors with colonial intelligence. Something big is brewing out there, and I have a feeling our primitive technology might not seem so funny when it hits." Wong nodded, but then paused. "Sarah, be careful. We might be seeing something they don't want anyone to see." "That's exactly what worries me," Chen replied, checking her secure communicator. "The Confederation's been playing a game of technological superiority, but their ships are dying out there. And sooner or later, whatever's killing them is going to find its way to Earth." As she hurried through the station's corridors, Shen passed several alien diplomats who barely concealed their smirks at her outdated uniform. Let them laugh, she thought. She'd seen enough of history to know that empires often fell not through grand battles, but through simple assumptions of superiority. The question was, could she gather enough evidence to make anyone listen before it was too late? And more importantly, would the Confederation's pride allow them to acknowledge their vulnerability before it cost more lives? Somewhere in the depths of space, another Confederation ship's shields were failing against plasma fire. Time was running out, and the joke was about to stop being funny. Captain Miguel Santos stood on the bridge of the ECS Magellan, watching the cargo ships his squadron was escorting make their final jump calculations. It should have been routine. 3 human military vessels protecting 2 merchant ships through a supposedly safe corridor of space. Should have been routine, but Murphy's Law had other plans. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, voice tight with tension. Multiple contacts just dropped out of FTL. Configuration matches Confederation vessels. But, sir, they're not responding to standard IFF queries. Santos felt his stomach tighten. "Show me." The holographic display sprang to life, showing 5 ships of clearly Confederation design, but their energy signatures were all wrong. They moved with an aggression that didn't match standard Confederation patrol patterns. "Sir," communications chimed in, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. A harsh voice filled the bridge, speaking through a translator. "Human vessels, this is Commander Vexcar of the True Path. Your primitive ships have wandered into a weapons testing zone. Prepare to witness true technological superiority. Your destruction will serve as a lesson to all who cling to outdated technologies." Santos recognized the name from intelligence briefings, a splinter faction that had broken away from the Confederation, taking some of their most advanced weapons research with them. They were supposed to be operating in the outer reaches, not here in supposedly safe space. "Battle stations," Santos ordered, his mind racing through options. His 3 ships, Magellan, Cortez, and Pizarro, were designed for escort duty, not taking on capital ships, but something about the situation nagged at his memory. "Sir, they're powering up weapon systems," Tactical reported. "Energy readings suggest." "Sir, those are experimental plasma cannons, far more powerful than anything in our threat assessment databases." Santos smiled grimly. During his academy days, he'd been fascinated by ancient naval warfare. He remembered how supposedly inferior wooden ships had sometimes triumphed over superior ironclads through understanding of fundamental principles. "All ships, execute Pattern Delta 7, he ordered. "Cortez, Pizarro, take escort positions on the cargo vessels. Begin emergency jump preparations." He turned to his tactical officer. "What's the effective range of those plasma weapons?" "Based on energy readings, about 60,000 kilometers, sir." Santos nodded. The raiders had positioned themselves just outside that range, clearly planning to demonstrate their power with a single devastating salvo. They expected the human ships to either flee in panic or be destroyed instantly. "Sir," communications called again. "They're broadcasting to multiple receivers. They're selling tickets to the demonstration." Of course they were. Santos could imagine the audience. Confederation citizens eager to watch the primitive humans get their comeuppance. The raiders were putting on a show. "Let them," Santos said quietly. "Tactical, load the kinetic penetrators, but do not, I repeat, do not power up the rail guns. Make it look like we're paralyzed with indecision." His crew worked with practiced efficiency, though he could see the tension in their movements. The raiders were taking their time. savoring the moment. All hands, Santos broadcast throughout his ship. What I'm about to do will seem insane. Trust your training. Trust your ship. And most importantly, trust your armor. Commander Vexcar's voice came again, dripping with condescension. A final opportunity, humans. Surrender your cargo vessels, and we may allow your crews to evacuate before we demonstrate our technological superiority. Continue to resist, and your destruction will be broadcast across Confederation space. Santos keyed his comm. This is Captain Santos. We are a lawful escort mission in recognized safe space. Any hostile action will be met with appropriate force. Laughter echoed through the bridge speakers. Appropriate force. Your ceramic toys against our plasma weapons. This will be even more entertaining than we hoped. Santos turned to his crew. Anyone here remember their basic thermodynamics from the academy? A few nervous chuckles answered him. Everyone knew what their armor was designed to handle. The phenomenal heat of atmospheric re-entry. Plasma weapons were, in the end, just another form of heat. Sir, Tactical reported, they're powering up for a full salvo. All 5 ships. Santos allowed himself a small smile. The raiders had arranged themselves in a perfect firing line, prepared to unleash their weapons in a single devastating display of power. It was a formation designed for spectacle, not combat. All ships on my mark. Execute Maneuver Washington. The maneuver was named after an ancient general who had once turned a superior force's overconfidence against them. How fitting. The raiders' weapons reached full power, their ships glowing with contained energy. Across Confederation space, viewers tuned in to watch the primitive humans receive their lesson in technological superiority. They were about to get a lesson, all right. Just not the one they expected. Execute, Santos ordered quietly, and the battle that would change galactic military doctrine forever began. The raiders' plasma salvo lit up space like artificial suns. 5 simultaneous beams of superheated matter streaked across the void, carrying enough energy to vaporize small moons. Throughout Confederation space, viewers leaned forward in anticipation of the spectacular destruction of the primitive human vessels. Instead, they witnessed something impossible. The ECS Magellan took the first hit directly on its bow. The ceramic composite armor began its programmed dance of destruction and renewal. The outer layer immediately ablated away in a spectacular display of light and gas, carrying away enormous amounts of heat energy. The second layer began its controlled degradation, spreading the remaining energy across the hull through carefully designed channels. Status report. Santos barked, holding tight to his command chair as the ship shuddered. Armor performing exactly as designed, sir. His engineering officer's voice carried a note of fierce pride. First and second layers ablated on schedule. Heat dissipation at optimal levels. We've lost about 18% of our forward armor thickness, but internal temperature remains within normal parameters. On the main viewer, Santos watched the raiders' formation dissolve into chaos. They had expected the human ships to be destroyed instantly. Instead, the Magellan and her sister ships were emerging from the plasma barrage, wreathed in glowing gas, but fundamentally intact. Sir, Tactical reported, they're preparing a second salvo. Their weapon efficiency is down 30%. Looks like their heat sinks are already struggling. Santos allowed himself a grim smile. Now they learn about heat management the hard way. All ships, execute attack pattern Epsilon. Show them what those primitive railguns can do. The human squadron moved with practiced precision. Their railguns, powered up in secret during the initial barrage, opened fire. Hypersonic projectiles designed to penetrate armor struck the raiders' ships precisely where their own internal heat was highest. Direct hits on all targets, Tactical announced. Their shields, sir, their shields are failing. The heat from our impacts is combining with their weapon thermal load. They can't dump heat fast enough. The raiders' formation had completely broken down. Their shields, already strained from their own weapons' heat generation, couldn't handle the additional thermal stress from the railgun impacts. Warning signals blared across their ships as heat management systems crashed. "This is Commander Vexcar." The Raider leader's voice had lost all its previous arrogance. "Ceasefire. Our shields are critical." "This is Captain Santos. Surrender your vessels or retreat immediately. You have 30 seconds to comply." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. The human ships, their armor gradually ablating but continuing to function, methodically picked apart the Raiders' defenses. Each railgun round transferred more heat into systems already approaching failure. "Sir," communications called out, "we're getting millions of incoming view requests. The battle feed is going viral across Confederation space." Of course it was. The supposedly primitive humans weren't just surviving. They were winning. Their ceramic composite armor, mocked across the galaxy, was proving itself against weapons that should have vaporized them instantly. One of the Raider ships suddenly went dark, its shields collapsing completely. Another began venting plasma from ruptured heat exchangers. The remaining 3 frantically plotted escape vectors. "Captain," his science officer broke in, "I think I understand why their shields are failing so catastrophically. They designed them to reflect and deflect energy. But they never considered having to handle this much heat all at once," Santos finished. "While our armor was specifically designed to handle extreme thermal loads through controlled ablation. The Raiders' retreat was as chaotic as their attack had been precise. Only 3 of their ships managed to jump to FTL, leaving behind 2 dead vessels and a shattered assumption of technological superiority." As the human squadron moved to secure the disabled Raiders, Santos opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships, damage report." The responses came back one by one. Heavy armor ablation, but no critical damage. No casualties. The ceramic composite armor had done exactly what it was designed to do: sacrifice its outer layers to protect what lay beneath. "Sir," communications said, "we're getting requests for interviews from every major news outlet in Confederation space. And, sir, you're going to want to see this." The main screen filled with social media feeds from across the galaxy. The battle recording was spreading faster than light itself through quantum networks. The commentary was a mix of disbelief, shock, and dawning respect. Did their primitive armor just stop a plasma cannon? Look at the heat dissipation patterns. Someone call the Science Academy. We need to study this. Who's primitive now? Santos smiled slightly. Send them all the same response. Sometimes the old ways persist for very good reasons, and physics doesn't care about anyone's opinion. As his crew began rescue operations on the disabled Raiders, Santos knew the galaxy would never look at primitive human technology quite the same way again. Sometimes the best solutions weren't the most advanced. They were the ones that understood the fundamental problems they were trying to solve. Lieutenant Sarah Chen stood before the Confederation Science Council, trying not to show her satisfaction at their stunned expressions. The battle footage from Captain Santos' encounter with the Raiders played on a massive holographic display behind her, showing in precise detail how human ceramic composite armor had defied all their expectations. "As you can see," she continued, gesturing to the thermal analysis overlay, "our armor's layered ablative properties create a cascading heat dissipation effect. Each layer's destruction carries away massive amounts of energy, protecting the layers beneath." Dr. Wong stepped forward, adding his expertise to the presentation. "The key is in the fundamental approach. While Confederation shields attempt to maintain integrity against all attacks, our armor accepts and manages its own partial destruction as part of its defensive strategy." The council chamber, normally a place of quiet dignity, buzzed with urgent discussions in a dozen different languages. The footage had become the most shared data packet in Confederation history, spawning countless analysis videos and technical debates. A counselor with crystalline features leaned forward. "But this design philosophy, it seems so counterintuitive, sacrificing parts of your defense to maintain overall protection." "With all due respect," Chen replied, pulling up historical footage, "humanity learned these lessons the hard way. Every spacecraft we've ever sent through atmospheric re-entry had to deal with extreme heat. We couldn't generate energy shields, so we had to work with materials and physics instead. Another counselor, their holographic form flickering with agitation, spoke up. But the energy waste, the need for constant repairs and replacement. Wang smiled. Sometimes efficiency isn't about preserving everything. Sometimes it's about choosing what you can afford to lose. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for the urgent message that flashed across every screen in the chamber. Another raid had just occurred, this time on a Confederation research outpost. The defenders' shields had failed against sustained plasma fire, leading to significant casualties. "This is what we've been trying to tell you," Chen said into the sudden silence. "The raiders aren't just targeting humans anymore. They're using these plasma weapons against everyone, and your current defenses aren't designed to handle the thermal loads." The Council's chief administrator, an ancient being with skin like flowing mercury, raised all four hands for silence. "Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Wang, it appears we owe humanity an apology. Our amusement at your technology was premature and uninformed." "We're not here for apologies," Chen replied firmly. "We're here because people are dying out there while the Confederation pretends its defenses are perfect. Our armor isn't perfect either, but it works, and we're willing to share what we know." The footage continued playing behind her. The Magellan emerging from a plasma barrage, its armor glowing but intact, while the raiders' supposedly superior ships foundered in their own waste heat. "The raiders are adapting," Wang added. "They're building bigger weapons, generating more heat. Soon, even our armor alone won't be enough. But if we combine our approaches..." The council chamber erupted in discussion again, but this time with a different tone. The mockery was gone, replaced by genuine scientific curiosity and urgent practical need. A junior counselor, younger than most, raised a manipulator appendage. "These ablative principles, could they be incorporated into our shield designs?" "That's exactly what we're proposing," Chen said, bringing up a new simulation. "A hybrid defense system that combines the best of both approaches. Energy shields for initial deflection, backed by ablative armor for thermal management." The simulation showed a theoretical vessel surviving plasma hits that would have overwhelmed either defense system alone. The Council's scientific advisors were already pulling up their own analysis tools, running numbers, verifying principles. "There's something else," Wang added quietly. "Something we noticed in the battle footage. The raiders' weapons, they're not just getting more powerful, they're getting more sophisticated. We think they're working on something big." The chief administrator's mercury-like surface rippled with concern. "How long do we have to implement a complete hybrid defense system across the Confederation fleet?" "Months, at least," Chen answered. "To prepare for whatever the raiders are building, we don't know." As if to punctuate her point, another alert flashed across the chamber's screens. 3 more raids, all using advanced plasma weapons. The casualty reports made several counselors visibly recoil. The chief administrator's voice cut through the growing panic. "Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Wang, it seems humanity has much to teach us about both physics and humility. How quickly can we begin implementation?" Chen allowed herself a small smile. "We already have teams standing by. All we needed was for someone to stop laughing long enough to listen." Across Confederation space, the footage of the Magellan's battle continued to spread, but now with technical annotations and serious analysis replacing the earlier mockery. The galaxy was learning a lesson that humanity had discovered long ago. Sometimes the most elegant solution was the one that worked, no matter how inelegant it might appear. The Confederation's central shipyards had never seen anything quite like it. Dozens of their most advanced warships were docked, their elegant hulls being fitted with what many had recently mocked as primitive technology. Dr. Marcus Wang stood at a viewing window, watching as robotic constructors applied layers of ceramic composite armor over modified shield generators. "The integration rates are exceeding our projections," a Confederation engineer said, their crystalline form glowing with excitement. The shield harmonics actually synchronize with the armor's ablative properties better than we expected. Wang nodded, studying the readouts. The hybrid defense system was proving more effective than even their most optimistic simulations had suggested. The key was getting the thermal transfer equations right. Your shields are incredibly efficient at deflecting energy, but they needed our armor's ability to channel and dissipate heat. The massive shipyard, stretching for kilometers through space, hummed with activity. News of the successful defense against the raiders had sparked a revolution in military thinking throughout Confederation space. The same ceramic composite technology that had been the butt of jokes was now the subject of intense scientific study. Dr. Wang, a voice called from the corridor. Sarah Chen, recently promoted to commander, hurried toward them. The preliminary field tests just came in. You're going to want to see this. The data she pulled up showed a Confederation cruiser, newly fitted with the hybrid system, surviving a sustained plasma barrage that would have overwhelmed its original defenses. The ship's shields remained stable, working in concert with the ablative armor to manage the thermal load. It's not just working, the Confederation engineer said, their crystalline facets shifting in what Wang had learned was their species' expression of awe. It's revolutionary. We've been so focused on perfecting our shield technology that we never considered alternative approaches. Sometimes the best innovations come from necessity, Wang replied, remembering his own early days working on heat shields for atmospheric reentry. When you can't generate an energy field, you learn to work with materials instead. Their discussion was interrupted by a priority alert. Another raid had just occurred, but this time the target, a Confederation patrol ship equipped with the new hybrid defenses, had survived with minimal damage. The raiders' plasma weapons had failed to penetrate the combined protection of shields and ablative armor. They're already adapting their tactics, Chen noted, studying the combat footage. See how they tried to concentrate fire on a single point. They're learning that their old approach doesn't work anymore. The Confederation engineer's color shifted to a more serious hue. But so are we. Every ship we upgrade is another lesson in how our two technologies can work together. Your primitive armor is teaching us things about heat management that we never considered. Wang had become something of a celebrity in Confederation scientific circles. His lectures on materials science and thermal dynamics drew massive audiences, with engineers and designers eager to learn from humanity's experience with atmospheric reentry challenges. Sir, a junior engineer interrupted, their holographic form flickering with urgency. We're receiving reports from the outer colonies. The raiders, they're testing something new, something bigger. The group huddled around the data feed. The readings were unlike anything they'd seen before, energy signatures that suggested weapons far more powerful than the raiders' previous plasma cannons. They're pushing the envelope, Wang mused, running calculations in his head, trying to overwhelm our new defenses with sheer power. But that means their own heat management problems will be even worse, Chen finished. They're getting desperate. The Confederation engineer's crystalline form pulsed with worry. Can our hybrid systems handle that kind of thermal load? Wang studied the simulations carefully. The current design? Maybe not. But we're learning to. Each layer of armor we add teaches us more about how it interacts with your shield technology. We can adapt. Around them, the shipyard continued its work, methodically upgrading the Confederation fleet with humanity's primitive innovation. The same engineers who had once laughed at ceramic composite armor now worked alongside human technicians, learning and improving both technologies. Commander Chen, the Confederation engineer said suddenly, I believe I owe you an apology. Many of us do. We were so convinced of our technological superiority that we couldn't see the wisdom in your approach. Chen smiled. Keep that humility. We're going to need it. Because whatever the raiders are building out there, it's going to test everything we know about physics and defense. Above them, another warship's shields flickered to life, their energy patterns now perfectly synchronized with the dull gleam of ceramic composite armor. Throughout Confederation space, similar scenes were playing out as the galaxy's most advanced civilization learned that sometimes the best technology wasn't the newest. It was the one that understood the fundamental problems it was trying to solve. The raiders were coming, yes, but this time they would face defenders who had learned to combine the best of both worlds, the elegance of energy shields and the brutal efficiency of ablative armor. Pride had been swallowed, lessons had been learned, and the galaxy was stronger for it. The Confederation colony of New Genesis was supposed to be untouchable. With 3 defense platforms and a permanent patrol fleet, it was one of the most heavily fortified settlements in known space. But as alarms blared across the system, Commander Sarah Chen knew the raiders had chosen their target well. Multiple hostile signatures dropping out of FTL. The sensor officer reported, their tentacles writhing with tension. Energy readings are, "Sir, these are unlike anything we've seen before." Chen stood on the bridge of the CSS Vindication, a Confederation flagship newly retrofitted with hybrid defenses. Captain Santos Magellan had joined the defense fleet, along with 24 other ships equipped with the combined shield and armor technology. They're broadcasting, communications announced. The Raiders' leader appeared on the main screen, his features twisted with contempt. "Confederation forces, this is Marshal Kekskar. You've had time to play with your new toys, combining primitive human technology with proper civilization. Now witness true power." The Raiders' fleet emerged from the darkness of space. 30 ships, each bristling with weapons that made Chen's tactical display scream warnings. Their new plasma cannons glowed with barely contained energy, radiating heat that their sensors could detect even at this distance. "All ships, battle formations," Chen ordered. "Defense platforms, initiate synchronized shield harmonics. Remember your training. Let the armor do its job." The Raiders didn't waste time on further diplomacy. Their first salvo lit up space with concentrated plasma beams 3 times more powerful than anything they'd previously encountered. The defense platforms took the brunt of the attack, their hybrid systems facing their first real test. Defense Platform Alpha reporting minimal damage. The controller's voice carried surprised joy. Shields at 82%, ablative armor performing as designed. Heat dissipation within parameters. Chen allowed herself a small smile. Weeks of integration and training were paying off. The platform's shields shimmered as they deflected the initial energy, while their ceramic composite armor channeled away the excess heat that leaked through. "Return fire," she ordered. "Coordinate with the Magellan's battle group. Let's show them what necessity's children can do." The battle that followed would be studied in war colleges for centuries. The Raiders had built their new weapons with one purpose, to overwhelm the hybrid defenses with raw power. But they'd forgotten the fundamental lesson that humanity had learned through centuries of spaceflight. Heat was the real enemy. "Their lead ships are showing thermal stress," Tactical reported. "Their weapons are generating more heat than they can handle." Chen watched as the Raiders' formation began to falter. Their massive plasma cannons were devastating, but each shot pushed their heat management systems closer to failure. Meanwhile, the defended fleet's hybrid systems worked in perfect concert. Shields bleeding off energy, armor ablating away excess heat. "Commander," Santos' voice came through the comm. "The Magellan sensors are picking up something interesting. Their flagship's reactor signature is becoming unstable." "They're pushing too hard," Chen realized. They built bigger guns without solving the heat problem first. "All ships, focus fire on their flags." A massive explosion cut off her order as one of the Raiders' ships literally melted from the inside out, its own weapon systems cooking it alive. The chain reaction that followed was both spectacular and terrible. Ships designed for maximum power output discovered the fatal flaw in their engineering. "Ma'am." Communications broke in. "We're receiving surrender signals from multiple Raiders. Their weapons, they can't power them down fast enough. They're asking for help with emergency cooling." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very ships that had come to demonstrate their superior technology were now begging for help from the people they'd mocked as primitive. Chen looked down at the colony below, its millions of inhabitants safe behind defenses that combined the best of two civilizations' approaches. Begin rescue operations. And someone get Dr. Wong up here. He's going to want to study these weapon designs. Something tells me we can learn from their mistakes. As rescue shuttles moved to assist the disabled raiders, Chen received a message from the Confederation Science Council. Hybrid defense system performance exceeding all projections. Recommendation for immediate implementation across all Confederation space approved. The battle for New Genesis became more than just another victory. It became proof that true advancement came not from raw power or technological complexity, but from understanding fundamental principles and being willing to learn from others, even those you once considered primitive. As Chen watched the combined human and Confederation rescue teams working to save the raiders from their own hubris, she couldn't help but think that sometimes the most advanced civilization wasn't the one with the fanciest technology. It was the one wise enough to recognize good ideas, no matter where they came from. 1 year after the Battle of New Genesis, the Confederation's Grand Assembly Hall looked very different from the day humanity had first been mocked there. The crystalline chambers now featured a new addition, a section of ceramic composite armor recovered from the ECS Magellan, mounted prominently beside displays of the most advanced technology in known space. Dr. Marcus Wong stood before the assembled representatives of 200 species, completing his presentation on the latest innovations in hybrid defense systems. The audience, far from laughing, was captivated. The integration of ablative principles with energy field manipulation has opened up entirely new avenues of research, he explained, gesturing to a holographic demonstration. We're now seeing applications beyond military technology. Everything from improved atmospheric shielding to more efficient reactor cooling systems. Commander Sarah Chen, seated in the front row, couldn't help but smile at the rapt attention of the delegates. Many of them were the same beings who had once chuckled at humanity's primitive technology. Now they were frantically taking notes. The key lesson, Wong continued, wasn't about superiority or inferiority. It was about understanding fundamental problems and being willing to solve them in whatever way works best. Sometimes that means energy fields. Sometimes that means carefully designed materials that sacrifice themselves to protect what's beneath. Usually, it means both. The questions that followed weren't about primitive technology anymore. They were about collaboration, about learning from each other's approaches, about combining seemingly contradictory solutions to create something better than either civilization could have developed alone. After the presentation, Chen found herself approached by a familiar figure, High Commander Zextal, his scales now showing patterns of respect rather than amusement. "Commander," he said, his translator rendering his harmonics perfectly, "I believe I owe you a personal apology. That day when I dropped my tablet." "You mean when you gave me the first clue that something wasn't quite right with the Confederation's defenses?" Chen smiled. "Water under the bridge, High Commander. An interesting human phrase," he mused. "Much like your armor, simple on the surface, but containing deeper wisdom. We've learned much from your species this past year, and not just about technology." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message. The last holdout group of raiders had just been captured, their ships disabled by the very hybrid technology they had once mocked. The war that had begun with laughter had ended with a revolution in galactic engineering. "Did you know," Zextal said, watching the news spread through the assembly, "that there's now a mandatory course at our science academy titled Human Engineering Principles: Why Simple Solutions Survive? It's becoming quite popular." Chen laughed. "And our universities are incorporating Confederation energy field theory into basic physics courses. I'd say we've both learned something." Across the hall, delegates from dozens of species were clustering around Wong, eager to discuss potential applications of hybrid technology in their own civilizations. The ceramic composite armor display, once a source of derision, now drew serious study from passing scientists. "There's something else," Zextal added, his scales shifting to a more serious pattern. The Confederation Council has approved a new position, Director of Technological Integration. We'd like you to consider taking the role, Commander Chen. Your ability to see value in different approaches, to find connections others miss. We need that perspective. Before Chen could respond, another commotion drew their attention. A group of young alien scientists was excitedly showing Wang their latest project, a hybrid system that combined 3 different civilizations' approaches to energy management. Look at them, Chen said softly. A year ago, they wouldn't even have talked to each other about technology. Now they're collaborating, combining ideas, finding new solutions. Maybe that's the real victory here. Indeed, Zextal agreed. Though I must admit, I'm still amazed every time I see one of our ships survive a hit that should have vaporized it. Your primitive armor has saved thousands of lives. Chen smiled. Want to know the really funny part? We've actually improved the armor's performance by about 300% by incorporating Confederation energy principles. Turns out we both had a lot to learn. As they watched the continued excitement around Wang's presentation, Chen reflected on how far they'd come. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson about the danger of assumptions, about the wisdom of respecting different approaches, about the power of combining seemingly opposite solutions. The last laugh hadn't been about mockery or revenge. It had been about the joy of discovery, the satisfaction of solving problems together, and the recognition that true advancement came not from claiming superiority, but from having the wisdom to learn from everyone. High Commander Zextal summed it up perfectly. Perhaps that should be the real legacy of this past year. Not that humanity proved us wrong, but that together, we all proved ourselves right.